Welcome everyone, Dylan Gemelli here today with a brand new video for you. So today we are going to talk about the safer ways to use Trenbolone, or at least the proper ways. But before we get into that, I have to reiterate that I am not a doctor. Anything I say in these videos is for your entertainment purposes only. I am not advising you and definitely not condoning you to use any of the things that we talk about, and what you do with this information is completely and utterly up to you. So before I even get started, I have to reiterate in the simplest terms possible, Tren is not something that any beginner should ever consider nor use in whatsoever, any way, shape, or form, never. Look, you don't take one of the harshest compounds out there, and when you're introducing yourself to these foreign substances and put that into your body first, you just don't do it. Just use your head here. Most of you out there are very, very smart. You don't need me to really tell you this, but you let others influence you, or you do something irrational. Just don't do it for your own sake. Please, please don't do it. Now, let's talk about the first time you're using Tren. Now, you want to go with Tren Ace, which is the short estered version of Tren. Now, why do you want to use Tren Ace instead of Tren Enanthate? It's very simple. Now, Tren Ace is something that you inject every other day, but it's in and out of your system far quicker than Tren Enanthate, which is a longer ester. Tren Enanthate could take at least a few weeks to be out of your system. Now, if you're using Tren and you can't handle it, because a lot of people can't and a lot of people have to stop, you want it out of your system immediately. The night sweats, the insomnia, the possible, psychological problems that it can cause, because a lot of us have been there. You don't want to keep going through that. If you can't handle it, you obviously want it out of your system quickly. And by using Tren acetate first, it's going to be out of your system quick. You're not going to be enduring those side effects for, let's say you want to stop today and you're running Enanthate, it could be 2 to 3 weeks before these stop and go away. And there's a reason you're stopping, because you can't handle it. So you don't want to endure it any longer than you have to. So you need to start with Tren acetate first, the first time that you use Tren. Now, let's talk about the dosing. I see a lot of people that use Tren without test. It's arguable, okay? I'm going to assume that most of you are not doing that. It's not something I prefer. It can be done, but I don't care for it so much. I know some guys that I respect a lot that do stand by it, and so I respect their opinions and their experiences. I truly do, because they're friends of mine. And I don't argue with them about it. I just say, well, that's your way, that's cool. I got no issue with that. It's not really something that I prefer nor recommend. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. It doesn't mean that they're wrong and I'm right and vice versa. It's not what I prefer. I just don't feel that it's the best look, side effect wise, results wise, but others will argue that, and that's completely cool. I respect that, but we're going to go with what I feel here in the video. So that brings into question the test to Tren ratio. A lot of people will say, well, I don't handle it well with more Tren, or I don't handle it well with more test. Here's what I always say, because everybody's different, and this is a trial and error process. There's no right answer here. So what I always tell people to do is start off first running them equal. Run them right down the middle. That way there isn't much of a conflict either or way. After you do that and try that, then play around with it. See how you respond to that. If you respond well, you don't need to fix what's not broke. If you feel like you could get more out of it one way or another, try it, but ease into it. So if you're going to run higher tests than Tren, for example, maybe 50, 75, maybe even 100 milligrams higher, but don't do these outrageous 500 or 200s, etc. your first times through. Or vice versa. If you want to, run Tren higher, then do it that way. But don't go crazy. Don't go out late, because you can always increase. But once you go too high, it's too late. Remember that. So be conservative in that regard and work your way up and learn your body. Trial and error. All right? Now, beyond that, what about the dosing? Well, I see people wanting to run 500, 600, 700 milligrams of Tren. I assure you, you start running Tren that high, it's not just the physical side effects, but the mental side effects that you're going to endure. And when you start having psychological side effects, start getting over emotional, start thinking irrational, start getting overly aggressive, man, that can cause you far more problems than just, physical problems. I've seen people get in trouble with the law, make irrational decisions, with their significant others, make irrational money decisions, start getting depressed and not doing anything. These are things to consider aside from the insomnia, the night sweats, the overly aggressive behavior, the possible loss of libido, the possible hair loss, the acne, all of these things that come into play. You've got to run moderate doses of Tren because a little bit of Tren goes a very, very long way. 300 milligrams of Tren will do wonders for you. I always tell people don't exceed 400 milligrams. There's absolutely no need. That's the top end I recommend. I see people get good results with 200 to 250 milligrams of Tren. You don't need a ton of it. I promise you. I don't care if you're 150 pounds or 500 pounds. You don't need that much of it. It's not about your size. It's about what you can handle and what you're going to get from it. All right? You don't need just extreme amounts of Tren. You just don't. I assure you. You've also got to make sure that you're aware of, prolactin with Tren, right? So when you're running, and I see most people that when they're running 300 milligrams or less, all they really need is vitamin B6 to control it. You can always have Dostanex on hand or Pramipexole, one or the other. Dostanex is very strong. It's got a little bit less side effects. I've actually got a video coming out on both of them that's going to explain them in detail that you'll definitely want to watch. But if you go over 300, I suggest using one of the others, and you can still use it 300 or under. You just may not necessarily need it, or you can go at a much lower dose. But it's something that you definitely need to be aware of and keep your eye on. All right, and you obviously, if you're running it with tests, you've got to control your estrogen as well because you've got to have a balance between estrogen and prolactin. You can't let one get out of hand with the other. You got to have a nice balance there between them. All right? But when you're running Tren Ace, 6 to 8 weeks is more than enough. And if you're running Tren Enanthate, 12 weeks is really pushing it. 10 weeks is really good. 12 weeks is the max that I would personally tell you to run it. That's up to you. Everybody's different. But if we're talking about doing this in the safest and still most effective way to mitigate the side effects and keep them as low as possible, and it'll give you the best chance and probability of getting through the cycle the best possible way, then that's what I would do. I'm always a little bit more conservative because I want people to have more health, more longevity, better quality of life, and still get the results. You can be aggressive in a conservative way. You just got to understand how to do it. You got to understand the concept of that. All right? So that's really, in a nutshell, the best ways to go about using Tren in the safest possible manner. Starting from the very top with it's not a beginner steroid, and all the way down to the dosing and the length of time. And managing side effects, things of that nature, adjusting your doses accordingly. Just don't ever abuse Tren. Respect it, or it will disrespect you like you have never seen, and it will hurt you. It will. And also, there's no need to run 20 Tren cycles. Run it once and then maybe skip a few, run it again, etc. You don't want to overdo it, I'm telling you. There's so many different side effects and aspects that can occur short and long term. So just respect it, understand it, utilize it properly if you're going to use it, but do it in the right way for your own sake. So, that being said, www.icearms.com/forums. I'm also on the Evolutionary Forum as well as the Elite Fitness Forum. You can email me, Dylan@icearms.com, and please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That being said, stay tuned for plenty more to come. Dylan Gemelli, signing off.